Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we are going to be going through the Duskmourn Precons. I'm going to suggest which ones I like, which ones I don't like, or, just kind of give general thoughts about all of them, ranking them on a number of different things. Before we get into it though, make sure you guys subscribe. At the moment, 87.3% of watch time is coming from non-subscribers. If, even 1% of you guys subscribe, we could potentially hit our goal of that 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So please subscribe and, let me know any feedback that you guys have about the channel and stuff too. So these are the number of different things that we're going to be ranking them on. First of all, we're going to be giving stars, where 1 is like not great at all, down to 5 stars being top tier. Pretty obvious kind of starring system there. So we're going to rank them on, first of all, performance out of the box, how good I think the deck feels / plays out of the box with no changes. The upgradability, so how upgradable is this deck? Not like, does it need a huge amount of upgrades, but like, is this a common mechanic? Is it around and, had support since the dawn of time? Or is this like a completely new mechanic or just shows up in a couple different sets kind of thing? We've got reprint value. So how valuable are the reprints that are within the deck? Now, keep in mind that the reprints will obviously drop in value post-release. So, if they've reprinted a $40 card, it might have been $40 because it hadn't been printed in ages, and now it's getting reprinted, so it's going to drop down a lot. Something like that happened with Rousing Refrain within the OTC ones, where previously it was like a $10, $15 card, and then it dropped down to like $1 after that came out. The next one is the unique / new card potential. So these are the new cards that came along with this deck. So I'm going to be ranking them on how useful are these cards in other decks. Like if you pull this deck apart, will these new cards be really great in other decks, or are they like, very tied into a specific theme? And also next we're going to do the thematic. So first, like, how does it fit into the set? Does this deck feel like it takes place within Duskmourn, for example, or tie into Duskmourn very well? Or also, how do the decks thematics tie together? Because sometimes decks feel like they've just taken a whole bunch of good stuff and put it together, as opposed to this being a very themed deck around the commander and secondary commander and all the different cards kind of theme tying together. Now, the last one here is my personal overall score. So this is how I think the deck rates compared to other precons, both in this set and existing, and how likely I'd be to suggest for you to buy it and upgrade it. This is my personal score. It is my personal thoughts. You guys can disagree with me here, obviously, and I'd love to hear down below what your thoughts are as well. Either, when you watch this video before you go and buy them, or later on after you buy them and play around with them. I'm always open for you guys letting me know what your thoughts are. So we're going to go through each of them very, very, very quickly first, so that way you guys get my general summary on each of them, and then we're going to go into the actual rankings and stuff. So starting off with Endless Punishment, we've got Valgavoth and the Lord of the Pain. This is based around a whole bunch of different group slug mechanics, essentially, where we're going to be dealing pain out to people whenever they try and do things. The reprints are based around burning and stacks and stuff, so whenever people do stuff, they're going to be taking damage from it. A bunch of different sacrifice / on death and stuff triggers. We've got a bunch of removal as well, some life gain, which is really important when we're dealing damage to ourselves, and then some nice draw too. We've also got Rakdos that kind of ties the deck together because he makes all our creature cards cost 1 less for each 1 life that opponents have lost, and we're going to be dealing a lot of life damage. We've also got some group huggy kind of stuff in here too. The valuable reprints are mostly creatures and mostly stuff that hasn't been reprinted in a while, but they are really great kind of reprints and nice to kind of see in here. There's also some nice reprinted lands. However, again, these ones haven't been reprinted in a while, so they were more expensive because of that, but still really great. The mana base isn't too bad as well. It's actually really, really good in my opinion. This is saying it's a good mana base for a precon, not saying it's a good mana base for an actual full deck. There's obviously room to be able to upgrade it, but still it's a good mana base for a precon in my opinion. As for the winter deck, so this is based around winter and the delirium mechanic mostly, and a lot of milling stuff, which is really nice to see. So winter allows you to be able to bring things back from the graveyard by exiling cards from your graveyard with Delirium, so needing 4 card types, and then bringing one of those back, a permanent card. So that doesn't need to be a creature card, it can be any permanent. And then we've also got Rendmore that gives, like, you know, stuff based on playing cards with 2 or more card types, which you'll notice a lot of in here. There's a lot of stuff that is around 2 or more card types, like, you know, an enchantment creatures, in artifact creatures and stuff, a lot of mill reprints, a lot of recursion. Well, actually not as much recursion as I would have hoped, but still a bunch of recursion. We've got a bunch of graveyard synergy as well, so, you know, being able to utilize stuff within our graveyards. The reprints are actually really nice. I think they're not super old things, so they're more expensive because of that. They're just decent reprints. The mana base isn't too bad. It's not the best of, but it is, like, you know, middle of the pack for a precon. We've got the Aminatu one here, which is based, which is the Miracle Worker one, based around miracling or, you know, top decking enchantments and just enchantments overall. You've also got ways to be able to play enchantments from graveyard. The new cards are based around just a whole bunch of different stuff to tie in enchantments and stuff. You know, Ancient Cellar Spawn is great too, because it kind of ties in a bit of the demon horror nightmare kind of stuff in there too. The reprints are a lot of enchantment synergy, as you can imagine, and, you know, being able to manipulate your top deck and have some big enchantments too, as well as some miracles to be able to top deck, some stacks and pillow fort stuff, and some enchantment creatures. You've also got some graveyard synergy, but not a whole lot. The reprint, like the valuable reprints, are kind of, you know, some decent stuff from not too long ago, which is good. You know, some decent, I think it's really good kind of value there, slightly above the average maybe. And the mana base is pretty good too, especially that Hall of Heliod's Generosity is an amazing land to see within this. We've got the Jumpscare one, which is around Manifest Dread, which is like a new take on Manifest, where you're putting 1 into your graveyard and 1 manifesting when you do it. But realistically, this deck is mostly kind of landfall, with Manifest Dread being like the kind of, it's like they both are kind of competing themes there. So you've got a lot of stuff to be able to, like, from the new cards, to be able to either manifest stuff or be able to flip stuff and, you know, that kind of stuff. The reprints are mostly kind of around landfall and, you know, lands and stuff. A lot of stuff to do with lands. You've also got some stuff to do with the face downs. Primordial Mist is an amazing reprint in here, because it's going to allow you to be able to cast those, you know, instants and sorceries that might have been manifested, and a bunch of removal that's kind of on theme, and the face down value, so getting value from your face down cards, and then some things to kind of chuck into your graveyard, and some things to flip over when you are attacking, with some card draw stuff randomly in there. The reprints in this deck, though, are amazing. This is probably the one with the best reprints. Not because, you know, there's a bunch of really decent reprints, like, you know, a bunch of kind of $5 reprints, but like, you know, $40 reprint, $17 preprint, and then there's some others that are around that kind of $5 mark. The mana base isn't too bad. Again, slightly above average for a precon, which is good. So recovering, like, why, what I'm ranking things on again. So performance out of the box, upgradability, the reprint value, the unique new card potential as well. So, like, you know, I'll talk about, you know, when I get to it, like the Zamone one, for example, the thematics here, how well it ties into the set and ties into each other, and then my overall score. So starting out with Endless Punishment. So again, this is a group slug deck that's going to be slowly chipping away at opponents with, like, stack style cards. Out of the box, it's not too bad. It's going to be performing relatively well. You're going to be, you know, dealing damage out to everyone on your turn whenever they're doing stuff, or on their turns as well, and then slowly kind of building up your Vel'Gavoth. Now, personally, I think the Lord of Pain, which is the secondary commander in here, is much better. I like him a lot more. He's more likely to get you aimed down because he's more obvious than Vel'Gavoth, while Vel'Gavoth's just going to sit there kind of slowly creeping up, which I kind of get is thematic. But Lord of Pain's more like boom, 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 boom. I'm going to deal a lot of damage out to you. It is a Precon theme that hasn't really been done. Let's go down to upgradability. I should just do these in order. So upgradability, stack style, group slug style stuff shows up, one card, two cards, every kind of set usually. I would say like one card usually every set. There's some sets that are going to be more based around it with slightly more burn stuff, but most of the time it's not like a deck that's kind of based around it. It's like a set that's kind of based around it. It's kind of stuff that just shows up every once in a while, but there has been a lot of this stuff that you can potentially add in from the past. The reprint value, again, I said middle of the pack, it's around there. The unique/new card potential, I think outside of like a group sluggy stuff, some of those new reprints aren't going to be super bonkers. I think they're good, but they're kind of just good. They're not great or kind of average. The thematics, though, this deck is the most thematic of all of them, in my opinion. I love the idea of Velgavoth kind of sitting there slowly, and he's kind of building up these kind of things that are slowly making you go mad, but chipping away at your health, your mental health. I think the thematic is really, really on point with this Velgavoth deck, and that's the kind of area that I really love this. There is just a bunch of reprints from the past that you can potentially add in to kind of move into that thematic even more as well. My overall score, I think this one's just about average. I think it's good, but it's kind of, it's good. It's not that kind of step above that to be great. I think just kind of, compare it to other precons, it's around that kind of middle of the pack. One thing to kind of keep in mind, though, is if you do get this one, is that if you bring out a group slug deck that is slowly kind of, it's got a bunch of triggers every single time someone does something, people are going to aim you down. They are not going to like the fact that, every time they tap a enchantment, tap a land for mana, they're going to take damage and stuff. Like, they're not going to like the fact that every time they cast a spell, they're taking damage. Not necessarily because that makes you a huge threat. It's because it's just, it makes you appear like a bigger threat than other people who are kind of slowly building up these big engines, and then having one explosive turn, you're kind of just there in the back of their mind, like, oh, I'm casting a spell, I'm going to take damage. I'm doing this, I'm going to take damage. It's just an annoying thing that I think people will overvalue how much damage you're kind of dealing to them. All right, the next one here is the Death Toll one. So quick summary again, this is milling cards from your graveyard to activate the Delirium, and then also to be able to reanimate them. Out of the box, I think this one's about average, same around the Endless Punishment kind of area. It works pretty well, and it works relatively well. I'm just not a huge fan of Winter as the commander here, but that's just because I don't like the fact that you have to exile stuff to be able to resurrect one thing. I think that there's almost so many other Reanimator characters in Golgari that I would prefer to be like the helm of this deck. But he is still good, and he kind of does both the payoff and the activator on the same card. So, you're milling to be able to activate the second ability really well. And again, out of the box, you've got a lot of mill stuff, which is very interesting comparing it to the Lagoif deck, the Graveyard Overdrive deck that didn't have as much mill stuff in it. The upgradability, this is off the charts in upgradability. Golgari Mill, Golgari Reanimation, both of those two, you've got so many upgrades. One of the first things that you look at when a new set comes out is what kind of the limited mechanics, limited kind of things are going to be, and a lot of the time it ends up with Golgari being Reanimator. In fact, I think it was similar. It was Forage within and it had partial Reanimator, I guess, in Bloomburrow, which is literally just gone. There's just so many Golgari Reanimator cards that you can add in here, or even just black Reanimate cards. The reprint value, middle of the pack, there's some good reprints in here, nothing kind of off the charts, but still some decent ones. The unique/new card potential, again, that kind of middle of the pack. If you're building another Golgari Reanimator deck, they're going to be more useful, but also a bunch of them were more trying to get that kind of 2 card types, and I'll talk about that in my overall score later on. The thematics, I don't know, for Winter doesn't scream to me kind of reanimate mill kind of thing. I actually prefer the winter from the base set as more of a thematic. And you know, the thematics are a little bit kind of all over the place because of the fact that they kind of wanted to put in a whole bunch of enchantment creatures and artifact creatures and stuff, where that way they are able to fulfill the delirium easily. But that means that it's a little bit, as I said, all over the place kind of thing, because of the fact that they just wanted to have a lot of enchantment or like a bunch of enchantment creatures, a bunch of stuff that just fulfills 2 delirium things at once to both activate the secondary commander, and so that way with winter you don't need to exile quite as much. So as I said, I'm not a big fan of the face commander just because he wants to kind of keep things in your graveyard, but winter is like for delirium, but winter is kind of exiling them. And if you're exiling, say for example, best case scenario, you have to exile 2 things, which means that to be able to fulfill that 4 card types, you're still exiling something to be able to reanimate 1 thing. But the part that I don't like more about him is the fact that you've got that punishment of needing to exile, but then you've got the additional punishment of the finality counter on top of that. Yeah. However, there is a lot of cards with the 2 card types to be able to fulfill that, which makes it a bit easier. And there's also a bit of an insect / spider sub theme, which is a bit off-putting for me. But if you like that kind of thing, then you've kind of got that option. As I said, I'm not a huge fan of this one, mostly because winter doesn't feel like it. I don't like the thematics. I think the thematics are a bit over the place, but it does play relatively well, and I think it's going to be decent. All right, the next one here is Miracle Worker. Now, the first thing you're going to notice about this is the performance out of the box is really low. I don't think this one performs incredibly well out of the box, especially once you kind of lose Aminatu. If you've got Aminatu out on the board and you're able to miracle stuff out, then that's going to be really, really great, right? You've got so much great stuff that you can cheat out with that, But like if Aminatu gets removed, say let's say she gets removed twice and then you want to replay her, so that means that she'll be like what, 4, so she'll be 4, 6, 8. That's a bit expensive to be able to play. Yeah, there is some, like, you know, there's a lot of stuff to kind of tie in with the Surveil and like Scry and like stuff to be able to make sure that you are top decking and to be able to set up that. But the best case scenario with Aminatu is you get her out and she needs to at least survive around until your next turn to be able to even use her secondary ability, because you can't use that miracle on the turn you play her unless you had like some way to be able to flash her in prior to your draw step, which there is nothing like that in the deck. However, with that being said about the performance out of the box, everything else for this deck is really, really great in my opinion. The upgrade ability, you've got so many expensive enchants, you've got so many enchantment creatures, you've got so many, you know, big ways to be able to manipulate the top of the deck. Even a Sensei's Divining Top into this deck would relatively, like, it would increase the viability of this so much. There is a bunch of ways to be able to, like, you know, take a card from your hand and put it onto the top of your deck and then draw it next turn, play that 4 miracle last, and then boom. You just need more ways to be able to protect Aminatu realistically, in my opinion. The reprint value, again, it's kind of middle of the pack. It's good. There's some great reprints in there. It's nothing kind of off the charts. The unique new card potential, I think that the unique cards in this and the new cards are insanely great, especially that new horror that deals damage equal to the, like, difference between the actual CMC and how much they cast it for. So, like, you know, if they cascade something out, it's going to deal damage to them equal to whatever the card they play from Cascade is. It's really, really great. I love these new cards in this deck. The thematics as well, I think, are great in this. You know, the mixture between, like, you know, Aminatu, top deck, you know, bringing back Aminatu's kind of like thematics from her previous cards and stuff. You know, you've got a bunch of ways to be able to miracle things out. You know, the thematics really kind of tie into that whole miracle and bringing stuff out, and, like, you know, praying upon like praying for a miracle from God, kind of, you know, heart of the cards kind of stuff. I love that idea. I think it's really, really cool. I think that, you know, kind of the only area that kind of it drops out a little bit is the fact that they didn't lean a little bit more into like the top deck stuff or bigger enchants. Like there is some areas that the thematics is lacking, but generally I think it's great. So my overall score for this one is 4. Now, again, that is with, you know, taking into account that you will want to upgrade this one a bit. Like, you know, you want to make sure that Aminatu's got protection and you can add in so much different, like, you know, top deck synergy and stuff like that. But overall, like, you know, the thematics are on point. The new cards are really great. The upgradability, you know, is insanely like off the charts. As I said, there is just a whole bunch of stuff that you can do here. It's actually funny because, you know, I tossed up if I wanted to give Death Toll a 4 as well, but I just couldn't get to that point where I felt good about giving it a 4. I felt that it was kind of just average, but I also think that Death Toll kind of gets drawn down a little bit because of the fact that there's just been a lot of like mill, reanimate, you know, graveyard decks lately, where I feel like, you know, if I wanted to suggest one of those, I don't think Death Toll would be the one that I would draw to, unless you're going to take it and then replace Winter with something else. Then I would probably be more tempted to. While the Miracle Worker one, as well as the fact that this is just a very fun theme and super unique, like, we haven't had, well, maybe, you know, the previous Aminatu one's probably the closest to another Miracle Precon, but I just felt like it was really on theme and really great. I really love it. So the next one here is the Jumpscare one, which is the one that I am going to be most biased about. I am very, very biased towards this one, as you can see, and it's probably the one that's kind of the most all over the place in regards to its ranking. So this is manifesting face down cards through landfall and other techniques, and then you get to a lot of stuff around flipping them. However, it's manifest dread, so you're going to put one of those into your graveyard, which will come down later, and we'll talk about that. So the performance out of the box, I think this one performs really well out of the box. It's got even, like, you know, infinites built into it. Actually, I think even the Aminatu one might have infinite built into it too. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. Something to do with like the new one that makes everything into enchantments, potentially. I have to think about it later. But either way, out of the box, like, if the Zamone one can really, really pop off so well, I just have to, like, you know, I think that, you know, it's either a 4 or a 3 at least, but I think it's a 4. Now, the upgradability with this one is not as much there, right? So, Manifesting Dread, I would, like, if you wanted to lean into the Manifest Dread, which, you know, the Face Commander is, the upgradability is just really low because you're looking at, like, you know, the manifest cards, the cloak cards, and that's really it. I'm not talking about morph and disguise because of the fact that those are kind of, they're the similar mechanic, but they're separate. They're the ones where you're actually playing a card face down from your hand, like, you know, paying the 3 and stuff. I prefer this kind of idea where you kind of, you know, cloaking a card from your hand, or, you know, manifesting it off the top and stuff. Either way, even if, you know, you're taking into account morph and stuff, there is not all that many cards around that. In fact, you know, we had the morph, no, what was it? The disguise Precon from MKM, and even that, you know, you can only use the green section of that here because of the fact that it was Naya colors. So you don't have a huge amount of upgradability in here, in my opinion. However, the reprint value, oh my god, there is some amazing reprints in here. Now, one of them, you know, the AC, I think, is mostly expensive because of the fact that it hasn't been reprinted in ages. It was only a face commander from memory back in Commander Legends. However, it's still a crazy great reprint to see in here, and an insanely good card, right? It's like, what, landfall, draw a card. Now, the unique / new card potential is not there because of the fact that nearly all of the new cards, or at least most of the new cards, are either for face down cards, manifesting dread, or colorless creatures. Like, it's those kind of new manifest dread stuff that is in there. So you don't have all that many areas that you can go in, take the cards from this, and put the, like, the new cards from this and put them elsewhere because of the fact that they aren't, unless you're building a manifest dread deck, in which case, you know, then they're going to be the best, or even just a manifest deck, they'd still be pretty good. The thematics, I don't think, are huge here. Because of the fact that they kind of lent more into the whole landfall stuff. There is a lot more landfall stuff in here than I would have expected. I think that they also could have added some stuff in here to be able to play from the graveyard and stuff, because you're going to be chucking cards into the graveyard every time you manifest Dread. But, you know, it's still decent. You know, the thematics are still decent, right? Like, you still got like the Quandrix kind of stuff there, but it's just not like that kind of like, you know, I think it's just below average kind of thing. It's not bad, like bad. It's just kind of that below average area. However, my overall score for this one is 4. Again, I will say that I am biased towards this deck because of the fact that I absolutely love this new Manifest Dread. I love the Manifest cards, but I think that this is a great deck. And I would suggest it, in my opinion. Now, a couple of these rankings here are going to play in less to my overall score, just because of the fact that they are, you know, rankings just in case you want to know that kind of stuff. Like a new/unique cards is going to play less into the overall score, because that's only important if you want to kind of pull the deck apart kind of thing. And same with like upgradability, if you want to pull the deck apart, or, you know, like, I guess, you know, yeah, I guess if you want to kind of pull the deck apart, or you want to upgrade it to the point that it's like, you know, getting upgrades every single set. But my overall score for this one is great. Like, you know, there's just a great new cards for the Manifest thematic. You know, the thematics are a little bit all over the place because of the fact that it is like that difference between Manifest and Landfall and stuff. But you can upgrade it to be more focused on the Manifest Dread, which is great. And as I said, I do wish they had some more graveyard play stuff. Like, there's that one blue legendary that allows you to be able to flashback all instants and sorceries, I think it is, which would have been great in here. And, you know, there is infinites within this precon, which is crazy good. So these are my overall rankings, whether you guys agree with them or not. As I said, you know, I kind of explained them all, so I'm not going to go into them in depth again. But I'd love to hear from you guys as to what you think. I do think these are, like, you know, a bunch of really nice precons, a couple average ones, and then a couple that are above average, which is good. You know, they're not insanely kind of, I want you to go buy this right this second, which, you know, I think would be, I don't know if we'll ever get a 5-star precon, but we'll see. Let me know what you guys think. Let me go. Have a great day and goodbye.